Liam or James, can you hear me? Thumbs up.
I heard you here for a minute.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, I hear you. Good.
When Josie joins, we will get it going. Assuming we can all speak, which God only knows.
Oh my God, we did it.
It's a freaking miracle.
Incredible. Okay.
I thought for a minute that you guys were nationally divorced.
I know, man.
That's what it felt like. Do you want to make
peaceful national divorce?
Seriously. Do you want to make me a co-host so I can handle everything, or do you want to keep me at speaker?
Yeah, no, I'll try to. Hold on a sec.
Okay, we're gonna try this now.
How do I do it?
How do you do it?
There we go.
And accept. Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yay.
I invited Jonathan to speak as well. I don't know if he's having trouble now. That'd be horrific if so.
Jonathan, you have an invite. Here, let me make you a speaker. All right, I invited Jonathan to speak too that way. Oh God. Jonathan, if you're having trouble, please throw up an emoji. Jonathan, say something. Yes. Oh my God.
Oh, okay. There
Hey, it worked.
It's weird. It tells me I'm not a speaker, but I guess you can hear me. So
yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh my God. Okay, so let's get started. I know Jonathan's got to get off at 8, so we've got 42 minutes to hammer this out. All right. So for all the new people here, I'm going to have y'all both introduce yourselves again. Jonathan and then Clint.
Yeah. My name is Jonathan Casey. I've been activist in the Libertarian Party for about 3 years. Started with the Libertarian Party of Texas, moved on. We started the Libertarian Classical Liberal Caucus. A few weeks ago, I was at a debate in New York on national divorce, and that's about it.
Great, thank you. And Clint, go ahead.
Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown and Tower Gang, and all around, I don't know, firebrand for the loser brigadiers that are disappointed that they lost CLP.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. All right. So I don't know after all this who officially challenged who to a debate. So I'm going to, I guess, flip a coin and whoever. And so I
honestly,
guess, yeah.
I think it should just be Jonathan because he's the one that he has the critique. So I think it should be leveled before I make any sort of statement as to my defense, you know.
That sounds great. Okay, so I don't have to flip a coin. Good, because I didn't have one on hand. I was going to go find one. All right, great. Jonathan, go ahead and state your position.
All righty. Yeah, so my main contention, I am a supporter of free speech absolutism, but I do think that there is a responsibility when interacting with ideas, especially ideas that are really harmful to the liberty movement, such as racism or pedophilia, that you do have to push back on those ideas. So my issue with Clint is that often he does not push back on those ideas. In fact, sometimes he makes a joke like, "What do the Jews deserve it?" Which is fine. You can make jokes, but if you're representing yourself as a speaker for the liberty movement, I don't think that's going to come off very well. Also, when we're talking about creating these pedophile communities, Clint goes on to talk about how he doesn't know if 13-year-olds can consent or not. And I have a big issue with that because when you host people on your podcast and you give them a platform, you should speak out and say that no, libertarians do not think that 13-year-olds can consent. So
Did
I
you watch
disagree
the
with
debate?
him on not speaking up on these issues and allowing
Did you,
people to speak. It's fine that he allows people to speak. I don't really care who he lets on, but if he's representing himself as a member or as a spokesperson for the libertarian movement, then I think he needs to actually speak out against those ideas that do the movement a lot of harm. So
did you
that's my
watch the interview?
contention. I'm sorry?
Did you watch the interview?
Yes.
The whole thing?
Yes.
And do you understand the backdrop to why that interview even occurred?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Do you know that Thaddeus Russell specifically tweeted out about that 13-year-old and whether or not they consent? And do you know that's why I asked him that question in that exact phrasing?
You didn't ask him a question. You stated that you didn't know if a 13-year-old can or can't consent.
No, it was based off of his tweet, is why I framed it that way. Do you know
didn't
that?
frame the question. You made a statement. You said, I do not know if they can or can't consent.
Do you understand that when you're interviewing someone, you're trying to give them an opportunity to explain themselves better? And when it was his premise that he had known people that were underage that had sex that felt that they weren't victimized. I was giving Thaddeus an opportunity to explain himself better. That was the reason for the framing. The entire, premise for the discussion was that I was having on Eliza Blue at the time, who was an uncontroversial figure, to push back against his claims that people that are underage can have sex. That was the entire premise of the conversation. So the fact that you've taken a 5-second sound clip out of a 2-hour interview and framed that as if those are my ideas, when in fact the only reason I was having the discussion was so that Thaddeus would have to answer to someone who was at the time, one of the most outspoken and well-known advocates on behalf of children that are being sex trafficked. And yet you're going to frame it as if I was agreeing with Thaddeus. Is that your contention?
That's not my framing. You made a statement. It was not a question.
Dude, you're taking
You made a
5
statement.
seconds. It's not a statement. It's trying to get your guests to explain their position. If I had said, Thaddeus, you're a pedophile, would that have been the better way of putting it? Even though he's only having a discussion about whether or not people can consent before they're 18, would it have been better?
You could have simply
Or
said, I
would it have been?
disagree. I do not think that they can consent. Why don't you think that?
Well, I did go on. Did I not go on just a few minutes later to say exactly that, and that I would find it to rise to the level of capital punishment?
Yeah, but I mean,
So did I say, if I did say that, then how could you possibly contend that I'm agreeing with his position?
You're saying that if you walked in on it, I remember that clip. I don't remember you talking specifically about whether or not the state should be involved in instituting capital punishment for it.
Yeah, most anarcho-capitalists don't talk about the state being involved, do they?
No, because because they understand that if there wasn't a state involved, you'd have all these pedophile communities around. That's my fundamental issue with anarchy.
That's honestly
is they
what you
don't think that
believe
there's any
anarchists believe.
baseline for protecting other people.
So you believe that anarchists believe that there should be pedophile communities? Is that honestly your premise?
My premise is that anarchy, that individuals have to be protected from each other, and that government is there to do that, or at least should be restricted to that purpose. And that
Do they
if you
do a good
remove
job at it?
that, then yes, there would be pedophile communities all over the place. I don't think all anarchists think that way. I don't think they all want that to happen, but that would be the result of it.
All right, that's just it's absurd to even believe that. It's heartbreaking to hear someone that claims to have been a libertarian at any point believing that our discussions about ways to alleviate child predation without a state is in fact an endorsement of pedophilia in any form or fashion. It is in fact trying to remedy the issue without the state, which any good libertarian has considered at some point in their life. The fact that you haven't, the fact that you think that the state has to be involved to protect children is your downfall, not mine.
I mean, you can call it my downfall all you want. I'm not the one who then suggested, well, maybe we should just have parents be in charge of if children can consent or not. Because that's another statement that you went on to make. Again, you didn't couch any of these. None of these are phrased as questions. These are made of statements of your own. We can listen to them. I have them here.
Go ahead and play it, dude. If you're going to play the whole thing, though, because right after that, I say, yeah, but that's probably not a good solution either, because oftentimes the parent themselves is a predator or a relative.
You didn't say that. Elizabeth Blue said that.
I said it as well.
You're making statements for not questions, though. That's the problem. You're making statements and you're saying that you agree with them on these issues. My takeaway
No,
from the
I
interview
said
was that
I
you
said
agreed with them
exactly.
on all of this.
Oh, you think I agree with Thaddeus Russell that a 13-year-old can consent? Even though I
That's what
even
you
though I
said.
said even though I said I would punch until my knuckles broke if I were to see it. Do you think I
Well, yeah, if
agree
you
with
walked
him?
in on it, but that doesn't mean you would try to prevent it.
That would be, I mean, is that not how you would prevent it?
No. Well, you'd stop it, but that doesn't mean there is a reason why we have a government, right? If it's not there to protect children, what else is it there for?
Yeah, yeah. What is the government there for, right? It's a threat of violence. So with the absence of the state, I am that violence. You're too much of a bitch to even consider actually intervening when you see a child being attacked.
I literally said the
Just be
exact
honest.
opposite.
You need the cops to intervene because you wouldn't do shit. I don't live that way.
No, I would stop it. First of all, I would stop it, and then yes, I would absolutely
I don't think you
get the
would.
police involved.
I don't think you would. I don't think you'd stop it.
I haven't stopped pedophilia, but I've certainly stopped abuse of someone that I've seen. So
I
yeah,
don't buy it.
You can take that shit anywhere else.
Why
Listen, if
would
you
you
want to
need to
personally
intervene?
assault me,
Why would
go
you
for
need
it
to
all you
intervene
can.
when you
But
have a
if that's the
state,
base of your
Jonathan?
argument, then go for it. I couldn't care less.
Why would you need to intervene when you have a state, Jonathan?
Because there are times where the state isn't there right on hand to do something. So
Exactly.
sometimes you have to step in.
Exactly. Exactly.
But what you're saying is that you're fine with these communities. You're fine with, if in
No,
this anarchist society, you're fine with Jeffrey Epstein having his little island and doing whatever he wants to.
you're out of your mind, dude. There's no reason to believe that anyone that is having an adult discussion, which clearly you're incapable of, just because we don't believe that a state actually alleviates these issues, which any libertarian worth anything would agree with, that we're going to come up with other avenues that we might be able to leave these extraordinarily serious issues. But you just want to fall back on, oh, you don't want the FBI, so who's going to stop sex trafficking?
Well, first of all, we can stop sex
That's really
trafficking
your
without the
claim.
FBI.
What?
We can stop this. We can stop sex trafficking without the FBI. The FBI gets in the way most of the time. There are local organizations that can handle those things.
Well, they've done a great job of it, haven't they?
Well, better than anarchist societies have. I mean, listen, there are cults and stuff that you guys are basically defending this cult environment, which lets cults do whatever they want to these kids. That's what the problem without having a state.
All right, so you're advocating on the existence of a state. I mean,
I'm a
that's the
libertarian,
premise.
of course I am. The libertarians believe that the government should be limited to protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's libertarianism.
No, libertarianism's inevitable conclusion is anarchism. If you acknowledge the evils of the state, you can help no other option but to conclude that anarchy is actually the end goal. But if you want to take your classical liberal caucus and argue on behalf of the state to protect children, which you wouldn't fucking ever intervene on the behalf of, let's just be straight up. Well, that's fine. But just don't run around with my label, because that's not what most libertarians believe in. They don't actually believe in a state. Not the ones that I ride with. That's for damn sure.
Well, as far as it being a word, you can try to take it from me, but you're never going to get it.
I've already taken it, motherfucker.
How?
Who thinks of you when they think libertarianism, Jonathan?
Why would I care what they think of me? I want them to think of Milton Friedman, of von Mises, of these guys. I don't want them to think of me.
I've already taken your label, Jonathan. Deal with it.
Okay, dude.
So let's ask this question. So, Jonathan, how do you believe pedophilia should be dealt with?
Well,
In a perfect in your perfect society, this is the question that was posed to Eliza Blue and Thaddeus. So I'm just going to repose it here so that we can get everybody's perspectives on the table in one place. So, what is, like, in your ideal society? How do we deal with sex trafficking? How do we deal with child predators? How do we deal with that?
Okay, well, yeah, you have a system of police, and you have a system of trials and due process of law. So if somebody gets accused of something, people like Clint just don't go murder them, right? So you actually have a process that you actually go through and you actually trial them. Is that a perfect system? Absolutely not. There's no such thing as a perfect system. But that is a system that we have that works to a certain degree. Is there many ways it can be improved on? Absolutely. But it's better than just not having a system at all.
And this is a local, state level, or federal?
Yeah, I mean, there might be some examples of in our current system. There might be some examples where you need to have some type of cooperation across state lines, but for the vast majority of it, yes.
All right. Now, there's a case in Texas where a farmer caught a farmhand raping his 4-year-old daughter, and he beat him to death. Are you on board with that, or would you like what are your thoughts on that? I know
I
in
mean,
Texas, the
right.
he was freed. He like they didn't like the jury
Yeah.
acquitted him.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with that case.
Okay.
I didn't look too deeply into it, but yeah, I mean, if you're in the whatever it takes to stop the act is justifiable. Now,
Mhm.
let's say if he stops the act, puts the guy up against the board and tortures him to death, that's one thing, right? But if it's in the act of stopping the rape of a child,
Mhm.
then yes, any amount of force is justifiable.
Now
And
watch me give the worst possible interpretation of what you just said, because that's what you've done to me so far. You do not support the torture and dismemberment of pedophiles. Why, Jonathan? Are you defending them? Do you see how fucking weak I would be if
No,
I were
I'm
to do that for
defending
you?
their right
Do you
to a
see do you
trial, you
see do you
moron.
see
I'm
how weak
defending
I
their
would
right to
be
a
if I
trial,
did
which
that?
every
But that's
individual
what you
has,
just
even
did to
those
me.
accused of pedophilia.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very good, does it? When you take someone's words and you just twist them into your own narrative, which is why I made it very clear I'm not saying that's what you're saying.
Clint,
Okay,
what
then
is
answer the
your
question that Josie made. Answer the question your way.
okay?
I'd
So
be
Clint,
totally fine with the guy torturing him to death.
so what's your ideal way to handle pedophiles in an anarchist society? Well, how would you handle pedophiles, sex trafficking? How would your society handle that ideally?
I mean, in the preferred anarchist community that I would want to reside in, it would be permitted that if you can provide evidence that you have murdered someone for predation, that you would be exonerated. Now, obviously, I would believe and prefer in a private police force and private judicial system some sort of compact amongst the community as to what sort of judicial system they might have, but that would be the ultimate solution, in my opinion.
So the farmer who caught the farmhand assaulting his small child, he was totally right. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good. All right. Great. Okay. So everybody's a little calmer now, but that was fun. All right. So, Jonathan, do you have any other statements? Do you understand Clint's position, or do you have it
Well,
explained to you a little more?
no, because okay, let me ask this from Clint. Would you in your perfect world, would you have no age of consent? And in the anarchist society, would there be no age of consent? How would that be dealt with in your society?
I think it would be dealt with by the community's decision making. I mean, the reality is as Eliza brought up in our discussion, is that you have immigrants into America right now that come from cultures that believe that, people get married at 15 and 16 years old. Are we the dominant culture in our society going to murder or imprison those people? And I don't know the answer to that. I think it's very difficult. But to even have that conversation, you have people like you that think that to just consider that there are cultures globally that accept that, whereas we do not, that you have to actually consider what state violence you're willing to bring to bear to make your civilization, uniform. And seeing as your classical liberal caucus, I'd assume you're a big proponent of immigration. So I'll ping pong this question right back at you. What do you do if you have, say, an Indian family or African civilization that migrates to America and they believe that their child should be married at 15 or 16 years old? Do you imprison them? And if they refuse, do you bring the state down and murder them?
This is actually, I want to interject really quick. This is actually a good question. I think it was Ireland where it just happened where a migrant was trying to get a 14-year-old child to, I don't know, do something disgusting and unsavory with him. But it came down to the point that it wasn't odd for his culture. So yes, this is a very real thing that does happen in other cultures. Maybe not here, maybe not anymore. I know my great grandmother was married off at 15. So it did happen here for a while, but yes. So Jonathan, what's your
Yeah,
opinion
but
on
I'll answer that question in just 1 second. But I want to point out that at the very beginning, I accused you of agreeing with Eliza and Thaddeus, and now you're stating their exact position as agreeing with them. So,
I agree with them that
moving
the
on to the
question is
scenario of
hard.
what you do with an immigrant that comes over. Yeah, if they're trying to marry someone off, there are going to be laws that sometimes ignore culture or don't take culture into account, and that's the way it is now. I don't think the parents should be put in jail for wanting to marry their child off unless they're insistent on it, unless they're forcing the child. And there's other circumstances, right? So no, I don't think you can just ignore age of consent laws just because of a cultural issue.
Okay.
now? How do you each feel about age of consent laws on a state level? Do you feel like that's the best way that we can do that in the society that we have today?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a proposal at a federal level that I don't even know that it's ever even been brought up. So if somebody was going to say, oh, this is how we should, or that we should handle it at the federal level, I would want to see what that is before I even consider moving it to the federal level. But I would, yeah, I mean, as far as right now, I wouldn't move it to the federal level.
All right, great. Do you guys have any closing statements before we open up for questions, or do you want to ask each other any other questions that have been on your mind?
No,
And Clint, how
Uh,
about you?
I don't know. I mean, it's just it's just embarrassing that you would try and paint someone with arguably the worst brush imaginable simply because they were willing to have people on, in fact, for the explicit purpose of pushing back against ideas that you find to be hurtful to the libertarian community. Would you rather Thaddeus Russell, who, by the way, has been on Joe Rogan Experience and spoken to millions of people, would you rather his ideas have not been addressed in a public forum?
but you didn't push back on any of their ideas at all. You went along with their ideas. You agreed with their ideas. Anyone can watch the episode and see that for themselves.
They're
Like
welcome to
that's my
watch it.
issue here.
There's no way that anyone came away concluding that I agree with everything they said. In fact, the entire premise of it and the outcome of it was that this is a very difficult subject and one that I'm actually not sure that we can remedy in the absence of a state given our current paradigm. Now, I think that you could probably formulate if you were starting from scratch, you could probably formulate an anarchist community that could alleviate this a lot better than the state-based solutions we have at present. But let's just be honest. You don't want the discussion, right? Because you feel that it tarnishes you.
I couldn't care less about if somebody has a painful discussion. I have a problem with people who don't stand up and actually push back on these bad ideas. I mean, I haven't even brought up the racists that you've brought on. Like I mean, you bring it on and you joke about
Oh,
whether
yeah.
the Jews
Tell, tell,
deserved it or not.
tell me
Like,
which
have a
racist I
spine,
brought on.
dude.
Tell me which racist I brought on.
Ryan Dawson is, I think, the one that comes to mind.
You got others?
I don't know. I didn't want to pay any more attention to you than I had to.
Well, you said it. You said it plural. So if you're going to make a statement, you should back it up. Should you not?
Sure. More of the Tower Pod guys. I don't know. You choose your pick.
Okay. Well, do you honestly believe that joking in a racist fashion constitutes racism?
That's not what I said.
I'm
I
asking you.
said that you have racists on, and you don't push back on them, and
I
you make
know.
jokes
I'm
about it.
I'm I'm stating that they aren't racist. That the Tower Gang guys are joking. Do you believe that joking about racism makes you a racist?
That's not what I said, and that's not what I'm going to say.
You're calling them racists. They joke about racism. You are
Is
making that
Ryan Dawson a
statement.
racist or not?
I don't think so, actually.
Wow. Okay. That's fine.
So for the rules of racism, who makes those rules? Jonathan and then Clint.
Well, obviously the dominant culture, as Jonathan has already stated.
I mean, people showing the actual I forget the exact definition of racism, but it's the open bigotry towards others that's unjustifiable.
So what are the parameters for?
What a joyless bastard.
So what are the parameters for when you're going to invite somebody on your show? How much do you let them talk? How much do you push back? I know, for instance, The View invites people on their show and then they don't get a word in edgewise because there's too much pushing back. So at what point is there balance? Like, do you let them have a statement, then push back immediately? Do you let them have several statements, then push back overwhelmingly? Jonathan, then Clint.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with letting them say whatever they want to say because a lot of times you let them hang themselves on their own words. But you should actually push the issue to see if they can actually defend their position against actual real world pushback instead of just sitting there listening and agreeing with everything.
That's exactly what I presented was real world pushback. I said, okay, well, what about when the predator is an uncle or a relative? That doesn't really make this work now, does it? To which Thaddeus said, you're right. That's a good point. And Eliza said the same thing. And once again, Thaddeus agreed.
Anyone can go listen to the episode. I heard what I heard, and it's pretty obvious to me that you just went along with everything they said, basically.
Clint, if you could link the episode into the comments section so that people can listen for themselves, that would be really great. And you can mark any timestamps that you feel are important too for them to hear. I know it's a long episode too.
It's 2 hours. I'm not going to timestamp it, but I'll be happy to link it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, timestamping, might be a little difficult. Okay. All right. So is it libertarian? Absolutism is free speech absolutism libertarian? Jonathan, then Clint.
Yeah.
All right. And Clint?
Of course. Yes. And I believe that includes racism. Does Jonathan?
Of course.
Okay. Did I say something to Ryan Dawson that you found to be racist?
No, I think bad ideas need to be pushed back on, and that you have a responsibility, especially somebody with a platform.
What bad idea did Ryan Dawson present that I didn't push back on?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What bad idea did Ryan Dawson present on my show that I didn't push back on?
Oh gosh, that was been a long time since I paid in. There were some things about the Holocaust denial, but again, I don't remember quite exactly what he said.
So you listened to this long time ago?
I guess. I don't remember.
Nah, you didn't listen to it, motherfucker. Just be straight up, dude. You just saw that I had Ryan Dawson on and you're like, check mark, got him. That's the truth.
I would love to open up the floor. I know Jonathan's got to go at 8, so I'm going to open up the floor for anybody who has any questions, so that way they can ask Jonathan as well, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Is that okay with you, Clint?
It's fine by me. I wish he'd acknowledge the fact that he didn't fucking listen to the episode and he's just talking out of his ass.
I mean, I listened to the episode. I don't know how you want me to prove it. I didn't really pay much attention to it then. I heard you make the joke about the Jews and pretty much turned it off. So I don't really, I don't have that much time to waste.
You're such a liar, dude. You're such a liar. It's unbelievable.
It's interesting that it's interesting that Clint came all after me about how mad he was that I was pointing out that he agreed with Eliza Blue and Thaddeus Russell. He came after me about that, saying I'm lying, I'm pulling everything out of context. And then we hear that in his ideal society, he exactly agrees with him. He openly says exactly what they say in that episode. So he's already admitted that his entire point is
keep
false.
Keep in mind, Jonathan, that you just said the exact same thing. You said that states should have the right to set age of consent. Why don't you want a federal level at 18, you pedophile?
What? That doesn't make any sense.
It's the exact same premise. If a fucking anarchist community says that 16 is the age of consent, you would say that they're all pedophiles. Well, guess what, Jonathan? There are states in America that say exactly that. So you're advocating on behalf of these fucking predators, you idiot.
If I'm hearing this correctly, Clint's saying a community should decide the age of consent, and Jonathan's saying a state should, and that's the state legislatures, which are essentially the people represented or the people elected to represent the community.
He
So
doesn't even know what he fucking believes. That's just the truth. He just wants to virtue signal. 18, hard line, anything underneath that, pedophile. Okay, bitch, but you don't actually believe that because you just said states' rights. There are differences. So you agree with me. How you like that? You agree with Thaddeus Russell. You agree with Eliza Blue. Oops,
No, I don't,
dumb
because
fuck.
I don't think that communities should be the ones determining whether or not
They
their daughters are
literally
sold
are.
off.
They literally are determining it right now in your fucking America, dude. That's what's happening. You're dumb.
they determine it through the state legislatures. Is I think
There's a
what
big
Clint's
difference
saying.
between a state legislator deciding something and a small community, as the one that was described in the episode does.
And so, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So the community that Eliza was talking about was more like a local community might be more dangerous than a state. Is that your premise?
Yeah, I mean that's what they talked about, and then when Clint just now talked about how the community should set it, I assumed that's what he meant. Did you mean community or did you mean state level?
I don't even understand the question. Do I mean community? Of course I mean community, dude. I'm a fucking anarchist.
Okay, so you agree. So you agree with Eliza and Thaddeus on this issue, because that's been my contention this whole time.
So do you, dumb fuck.
So is the difference that Clint would be more on a local level and you would be more on a state level? Is this the where you're not seeing eye to eye?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He thinks that the state legislature can do it, as if they're so fucking, altruistic and omnipotent that the state legislature is going to decide it. That makes it moral. But having the local community who actually knows the people that live there, God forbid they decide for themselves. You have a paternalistic attitude.
So it would be, say, selectmen, like a board of selectmen, who would decide this as opposed to, or voters in a community on a local level with a ballot question, as
He's
opposed
he's
to
he's
state
advocating
legislation.
he's advocating on behalf of a bigger state as opposed to a smaller one and calling himself a libertarian. He's a fucking embarrassment.
Jonathan, do you want to push back on that?
You better, since
Yeah, I
that's the
mean,
whole premise. You better push back. You better give me hard pushback. Otherwise, you're going to agree with me, Jonathan. That'd be a huge mistake.
uh, no,
I'm
listen, there's a
fucking
big
eating your
difference.
lunch, kid.
Again,
You can't hold my jock, you fucking pussy.
you okay, bro?
No, I'm not okay.
I can tell. Listen, there's a big difference between a small community deciding on whether or not what age the consent is, and then a larger community making a broader decision. Because in a small community, you have the very predators you're trying to protect your children against in making the decision. I've seen,
Yeah, predators don't decide the laws today, do they, Jonathan? You fucking ignoramus.
boy, I've really got under your skin.
You're an idiot. And I'm just demonstrating it. The predators run our country right now, you dumb fuck. Who do you think was protecting Epstein? Mossad and the CIA. You advocate on the behalf of a bigger state. Don't pretend that you're a goddamn libertarian while doing so.
I forgot where I was going. Could somebody
Yeah,
remind
you
me?
did. Because you were going nowhere, bitch.
All right. I'm going to open up the floor now for questions. I've got 4 of y'all. All right. Now, the way that we do this is if you want to speak, there's a heart down there at the bottom. I believe Android might not have this option, but iPhone does. So if you want to speak, just hit the heart at the bottom there, and to the right, there is a hand raise. So just raise your hand. When I let it go crazy, it gets chaotic. So, all right, I'm gonna go with Jack Pliskin. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. So, I mean, a lot of the core disagreement here with Clint advocating for a community-based solution to this, and Jonathan saying states states are the ones who should decide age of consent, protection for children type things. And so what and obviously I'm not expecting an exact number here, but what level of population or what level of bureaucratic protection do you think is sufficient for a community to decide these issues? Like, at what point does a community become big enough that you think it's morally justifiable for them to start making these decisions?
All right, Jonathan, I think that question's posed to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. Bigger than a small community, that's for sure. I'd say multiple communities. That's a dozen, 20. I don't know. There's no exact answer to that. I think that
Because you haven't thought about this at all.
I know I don't think about the issue of age of consent much, Clint. I don't. As a matter of fact, I really don't think about it that much.
No, you don't think about anarchism at all. You don't think about what the absence of a state would actually mean to humanity, because that's not your goal, because you believe in a state, which is fine, but that's the truth. You've never even considered an anarchist worldview. So when you hear it, you think the worst of the people that are presenting these ideas, which are foreign to you, because
No,
you're
I
a
think the worst
knave.
of people like you who don't speak out against these issues, against the pedophile community ideas. You agreed with Eliza. You're mad at me that for saying that you agreed with them on these issues, and that you're openly agreeing with them in this debate. Like, come on,
I
dude.
agree. I agree with one aspect of the premise, that I believe that a community is probably better equipped to meet the needs of the community than a state is. Any
Do you
anarchist
think
would
a
agree
13?
with that.
Okay, then let's get to the brass. What is it? The brass tacks. Do you think that a 13-year-old can consent?
Do you think that we should bomb
You didn't answer the
African?
question.
Listen
Answer the
to
question.
me.
Do you think?
Listen to me. Listen to me.
No.
Should we bomb?
You
Should we
openly
bomb?
stated in your
Should we
in your
bomb?
interview. You
Should
openly
we
stated.
bomb?
You openly
Listen to me.
stated that you did not know
Should
whether
we
13-year-old
bomb
could consent.
African communities that allow for marriage at 14 and 15 years old? Should we bomb them?
What? What is the what? No. Don't be ridiculous. Answer the question. Do you or do you not think that a 13-year-old can consent?
Do I think so? No, I do not.
Okay. I'm glad you're actually taking a stand now, except in the interview you weren't.
You're
In the
such a
interview,
bitch, dude.
you stated
You're such a bitch, dude.
that you did not know if a 13-year-old could
I
consent.
said I would kill a man if I saw it. How the fuck do you take that as me approving of it? How?
Yeah, you only said that after
How?
Thaddeus Russell used
How
that
do you
exact same
take that
argument to
as
defend his
approval?
actions. He used that
How do
earlier
you
in the
take that as
interview, and then you
approval,
just
Jonathan?
repeated him.
Tell me how you take that as approval. I would kill a man if I saw it. Do you think I think it's consent if I would kill somebody over it? Answer me that.
Well, I don't know. Why didn't you say so in the interview?
Bitch, I said it in the interview. What are you talking about? You saw me say it. You're such a fucking liar. You're so disingenuous. You know exactly what I was saying and what I meant by it. I would kill a man if I saw it.
Okay, but would you actually go out and save somebody who you didn't see? Would you provide a structure to protect
How would I
children you couldn't
possibly
protect?
know if I don't see it? How am I possibly going to do anything about it if I don't see it, Jonathan?
Because you create a system by which it can be reported. You can create a system by which it can be enforced. In other words, you can create a thing called a government. Do you agree in creating a system that would enforce age of consent laws?
A local system, yes.
So, a government.
All right, I'm going to call on the next speaker. Jefferson, go ahead, unmute yourself.
So my question is for Jonathan. If a small community is not capable of handling these decisions because it's not large enough to be, I don't know, good, a moral good, I guess, and a state is large enough, why is the federal government not even a more moral good that should be deciding this issue? Wouldn't their decision be even better than the state's?
Exactly.
By that logic.
Well, I don't know that it wouldn't be, because I mean we have states in the union that I think are really low. You can get married really, really young. I don't know any exact details on it, but I don't know that it would be necessarily a bad thing for the federal government. But again, I haven't heard any actual proposals that say this is what the federal government could do and step in and create a standardized system across the U.S. I don't know that would necessarily be a bad thing, but again, I don't know if it would be a good thing. I'd have to see what the proposal actually was.
Do you believe that this is the case for basically any issue then?
No, I mean there are certain things that I think are better. There are local enforcement that's better off than the federal level. I mean, I do think that it is a good thing to have multiple levels of government. You have checks and balances at different levels. You can have nullification of certain laws that local governments can do to state governments, and state governments can do to federal governments, and then you can also use the Constitution to overturn local and state government laws. So there's a balancing act there that I think works fairly well. It obviously doesn't work well enough, but I don't know that that answers your question so much. But I think it depends on every issue is going to be different.
Do you have a follow-up, Jefferson?
No, that pretty much answered it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Liam, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. So I just have a couple ideas here. I don't know how to formulate it into a question. I just want both of them to respond to it. Basically, I think the disconnect here is a real misunderstanding of what the anarchist position is. I don't think the issue is the size of the government, like whether it's a larger government or a smaller one. It's more about the nature of it. Real anarcho-capitalists, what they believe in is I think, as a good friend of mine puts it, Ethan Holmes, he says it's a separation of governance in the state. And I think that Albert J. Nock's separation of government and state is really important here. If you take the state to be coercive and you take governance to be something that can be a market phenomenon. And I don't think Jonathan understands, and a lot of these classical liberal types who criticize Rothbard and the anarchist position, they don't truly understand the maximalist libertarian position to be one that believes in the free market more than they do. We just happen to believe that governance under a market system is better than what we currently have. So yes, we do not discount authority altogether. We do believe in structures. We just think that other segments of society will provide those structures in a better way, just like we have private courts that respond and actually make up most law in this country. Most law happens through third-party arbitrators. We believe that law can come from another place rather than a coercive state. So I just think that a lot of the classical liberal caucus guys have not read Rothbard and reflexively respond to them because they think anarchist means that you are opposed to all structure and authority, but we are not the egalitarians. They are. So I don't know. I'd like Clint to respond to see if he kind of agrees with what I'm saying, and then I also want Jonathan to respond because I think there's a true disconnect in understanding of what the anarchist libertarians actually believe here.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I'm not an anarchist. I disagree entirely that that's the case. I don't think it's possible to privatize everything. That has never been demonstrated in any kind of modern setting. There's no real evidence for it. I don't think that private government would remain private. I think that ultimately government is a monopoly on coercion, and I don't see a way to ever get away from that. But it's not that I don't understand what anarchists think. It's that I see that as I just don't see it ever being a possibility in the real world.
But the problem here is that I don't think you're giving Clint enough grace, because if you truly do understand the libertarian position, you cannot possibly strawman him to believe that he is some pedophile sympathizer. He believes that there are other structures in society. Like, I mean, we as libertarians, even you, believe in the free market to an extent, and you believe the free market has a purpose in other areas of the world, whether even if you exclude police and military. You might say that, oh, well, we actually do need government involved in police force and the military, but you still acknowledge the free market is good in other areas of the economy. So you can at least extend that thinking to Clint, even if you don't understand and don't believe that it would be better under a free market system. You can at least understand that, yes, Clint might have a standard. He thinks pedophiles suck, and yet he still actually believes that other structures could do it other than government and do it more effectively because we actually believe in the market process.
Are you so you're basically you're saying that that Clint actually believes that there would be some type of system to protect children from pedophiles?
Yes, I do. He said it many times. And I think that you are strawmanning his argument and calling him a pedophile sympathizer, even though you just claim that you understand his argument. You understand the anarchist position that there could be free market structures out there that do things better than the government, especially in this area of enforcing laws and enforcing customs. But the main difference is that we separate state, a coercive state, with governance at large. You are trying to make Clint out. When you say he's an anarchist, you treat him as if he believes in no structure at all. But as a capitalist who believe in the free market, we believe in hierarchy. So you're just strawmanning his arguments.
I disagree. I think that he has openly stated that these communities would exist, that they would be, they'd be fine. Like Jeffrey Epstein's island is fine because, well, it's anarchy.
I don't think that that's what he's saying. I think he's saying that Epstein's Island exists under the current legal structure, and they actually have, free domain over the entire globe because of our government actually allows for this, and that a market phenomenon might actually be better at solving these problems. That's why I said the problem isn't an issue of how big or how local or how large the government is. It's actually the nature of it, because in a market process, we might actually get a Google-sized company that is really effective at solving crime, and it could be pretty large. It could be dominated. It could dominate the market, and we would still be in favor of it if they do their job correctly. So I don't actually think that you understand the argument. You are treating his argument as if he believes pedophiles should have there should be no recourse against them, and that's not the anarchist position. That's like the normal. It's the straw man that most people make against anarchists, is that they just believe in complete egalitarianism with no structure at all. It's just chaos, and that's not the case. We believe in free market phenomenon creating structure in society. As most structure in a hierarchy in society is free and private, we believe that should be extended to other structures. And you're strawmanning the argument.
No, I don't think I am, because I think ultimately what you're going to have is that those free markets are going to provide for those people who have bad tastes, and not just bad tastes, evil tastes. And so when we have these market structures that can be manipulated, and they can be manipulated, and they can be taken advantage of, you're going to have horrible bad actors. Now, that's not to say that there aren't horrible bad actors in our current system, but these horrible bad actors are going to be out there, and they're going to take advantage of children. That is going to happen. Now, that does happen in our current system, but that is not going to go away. The market is not going to be able to solve for those issues.
Jonathan, are you saying that there is a bigger chance that children could be targeted in a smaller community than in a larger community?
I mean, the data completely supports that. I mean, you're far more likely to be abused by your pastor, your priest, your teacher, your family. That is the bulk of the majority of abusers.
Those are the institutions you're advocating on behalf of. I mean, what's a bigger institution?
I'm advocating for an institution above those.
Right. So you want a bigger institution to a smaller one, but there's no evidence to demonstrate that the evil is diminished at the highest levels of state power. I mean, it's just flatly wrong.
I disagree.
I have one more follow up, and then I'll let someone else pitch in. I'm not even.
Well, I do. Let's do the follow up, and then I'm like 5 minutes late, but I'll listen to this.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, like, to make the argument I'm making, I'm not even siding on your side or Clint's side. I'm just saying that you are strawmanning Clint by not actually accepting that he just believes the free market system will do a better job at rooting out the problem. And you might believe that the free market wouldn't be better at doing it, but he does. And I'm saying you're strawmanning him by saying that he's a pedophile sympathizer, when really you're just not fleshing out the entire anarchist position, which is that the free market phenomenon would solve this better than the government would.
When somebody goes on their own podcasts and agrees with people who are saying that these communities would do better, and then who goes on to say that 13-year-olds, that they don't know if 13-year-olds can consent or not, I'm not strawmanning anything.
I did share a link to Clint's podcast in the comments if anybody wants to listen to that. Jonathan, I want to thank you for coming on. I know that you were, I know it was like coming into the fire, so I really do appreciate you coming on. And neither of you are pedophiles. Let's just get that out there, of course. And thanks again for coming on. I know you got to get going. I appreciate it, though.
Thanks, Josie.
Absolutely. Take care. All right, I'm going to keep the floor open for speakers. I can answer questions. Clint can answer questions. You can have discussion if you want. Oh my God, that was exhausting. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Whew, okay.
Sorry, guys. I have interviews about the Silicon Valley Bank stuff that I have to get to as well. So I don't know. I don't know if I have much else to say.
Then that's okay. We have to end it then if that's the case, because you're hosting.
I think it'll stay open if I leave. No.
If you X out, the whole thing X's out. You'd have to leave it.
Oh, then I'll just let it keep running because I don't need my phone.
Okay. All right. Cool. And you'll just have to come shut it down at some point. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Well, I mean, we can just get these questions and close it down too.
Sorry for
Mike
flipping out.
No, it was necessary. All right, Mike, go ahead and mute yourself.
Yeah, I wanted to propose this to Clint and Jonathan, but I'd love to get your take, Josie. The Texas legislature just last week put forth a bill 3596, if I'm not mistaken, which would essentially allow Texans to vote in November on whether or not they would like to secede from the union and become a republic. Again, I wanted to propose this to Clint and Jonathan, but I'd love to get your take on it if you have an opinion or not. Thank you.
I love that idea. I need to see it happen on a small scale, and then I can gauge on it happening on a larger scale. So yeah, I'm 100% in support of that. The one place that I worry about it is losing the electoral votes and falling to a dictatorship before any of that can happen. So that would be my one concern. But other than that, like, yeah, 100%. I can't wait to see how that goes.
Absolutely.
Let me add too that, that was what I was trying to get him to acknowledge, is that his justification for kind of cultural hegemony, it would be justification to invade, tribes in Latin America or Africa that marry off girls at an age that we find reprehensible. And the same premise would apply if we were to have peaceful national divorce and say, Arkansas or something sets the age of consent at 14. All right, well then what are we going to do? Is Texas going to invade to free all of these children? And is dropping bombs like really better?
Right.
Like, is that a really good solution? And because they don't want to have any of these conversations, because honestly, they are uncomfortable. Like, I don't like talking about it either. I've only ever talked about it on my show one time, because it's not something I think about all that often. But it's also like, if we want to ultimately get away from at least a federal state and get down to the state level, have more of a republic, these are issues that have to be discussed, even if they are uncomfortable.
Without question. As far as states' rights, that's a thing of the past. There are no more states' rights unless these governors step up and rightfully initiate the position that individual states have within the union. But other than maybe Florida, we're not seeing it. And I personally advocate for Texas seceding as a residence because I personally don't believe that the union has states' individual rights in their best interest. Texas has the ninth largest economy in the world, and a lot of people, don't feel like we could make it on our own, but they're just afraid that Texas, they're going to lose out on all the revenue that Texas provides in regards to imports and exports.
I was reliably told that only blue states do that and they support the red states. Oh my
Right?
God. I just want to say really quickly, if Zach the Libertarian is in here, you are having the same issue that Clint was having where you can't speak. And I don't know what's causing it. It's an awful glitch. If I see you in here though, again, because I see you're out of the space, I'm going to try to invite you, but I feel like it's going to be fruitless. So I'm so sorry. I'd love to hear you speak. All right, so I'm going to call on, let me see, Jefferson and then conspiracy extremist. Jefferson, go ahead and mute yourself. Hi.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak again. Hi.
Yes.
You know, listening to the debate about the funny thing is I'm not an anarchist. Like I don't really agree with Clint on that, even though Clint, I appreciate you very much and I love listening to you. And I'm not really even a libertarian, though I do have some libertarian views. I'm more of a small government conservative. So in that, I probably align more on policy with Jonathan, but I just couldn't there was too many inconsistencies with what he was saying, and he definitely was not being charitable with Clinton in any way during the debate on his positions. To say that, oh, you didn't push back against racism so you're a racist or something like that, or whatever the point is like that. I think his idea of pushback is you were supposed to condemn them right then and there, say, how dare you, you're a terrible, evil person. But that's not really going to do anything. You're not going to change their mind first of all, and anyone who agrees with them isn't going to have their mind changed by you just saying, you're evil person, I'm good person. You like bad thing, I like good thing.
Well,
So that whole...
Let me add real quick that, it wasn't as if Thaddeus was saying, hey, Clint, I think that I'm interested in dating a 13-year-old. I was like, if he were saying that, there would have been ample opportunity and reason for me to interject and condemn him. But he's having a discussion about ideas. I mean, I don't fear ideas. I think that having a conversation about ideas, even bad ideas, is actually how you defeat them, as most libertarians believe. So if I allow someone to expound on an idea that I find to be incorrect, that I don't see any harm in that. I think that allowing people to have to air out their ideas and flesh out their ideas as best as possible is actually how you allow kind of the logical flaws within them to show themselves. It's part of the reason I like doing long form conversations and part of the reason that I'm a much more amicable interviewer than I am in a debate format. So anyways.
I thought that was interesting because Jonathan actually said, yeah, the longer you let them talk, they're going to hang themselves. And that's exactly the same opinion that Clint had, but he had gone into this with an idea set in his head that was immobile. And this is actually when it came up to debate this, that I actually shared the video of Clint pushing back and said like this. And I actually reshared the video in the comments here. But he doubled down on it and he had his position and there wasn't going to be any getting through to him. So a lot of times when you have a discussion like this or a debate, it's not for each other. Like it wasn't Clint trying to convince Jonathan. It wasn't Jonathan trying to convince Clint. It was exposing how the other one's ideas were wrong to an audience. So I'm glad that we were able to do that.
Which is something I totally understand. But I guess I was trying to get at is even though I probably would have been more in agreement with Jonathan's ideas, he didn't convince me of anything with his tactics.
Yeah, and that's poor debate format. That's the whole goal
Well,
of debate.
I didn't exactly present the best debate format either. So let's not let's not condemn him only. I definitely lost my
Oh,
cool, but I think that when you start to make accusations about people thinking that pedophile communities are something that I would want to see in the world, it's just very insulting and infuriating that someone who considers themselves a libertarian would try and paint your opponent in a debate in such a fashion.
It was a
It's
logical
just
fallacy. It was
reprehensible.
no, it was. I agree. It was. I remained objective the whole time, but it was a logical fallacy, and it was really. It was dirty. It was a dirty. It's something that people on the left do. It's not something libertarians do. So I
I
was.
mean,
Well, just
The,
consider for a second what 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 more could I do to push back? I mean, like there's a conversation happening, and Thaddeus is presenting like his arguments as to why the age of consent laws are probably too high. That's his framing, and then
Mhm.
my retort to that is, well, he's not saying he's doing that. So am I going to threaten him? No. Like all I can say is what I would do if I were to encounter a child of that age being raped, because that's what it would be. Um, so it's like, what greater level of pushback could there be other than to say you're a pedophile, Thaddeus, or you're a pedophile enabler or defender or whatever? Like he is demanding of me that I frame Thaddeus in the same light that he just attempted to frame me in, when it's just not accurate. He's having a conversation about whether or not these laws are proper, and whether or not it can be dealt with on a stateless society in a better fashion. But I'm not going to strawman Thaddeus and call him things that I can't possibly know if he is or not. So I just think it's an impossible task. Like what they really want is for me to just blast these people, even if it's a joke. I mean, Tower Gang, for God's sakes, he wants me to condemn them. They're all my friends and good people, and we all joke about racist stuff all the time. So it's just not going to happen.
And what was interesting is the whole the thing that he said about um, people being innocent until proven guilty and needing justice, for the pedophiles. But when it comes to a racist, he wanted to immediately condemn them and have you condemn them. And like, isn't that like it was a contradiction of itself? I had some trouble staying quiet about, but I want to call on these people and have them ask
I
questions.
just
And
I just want to point out real quick how remarkable it is to believe that institutions, local institutions like schools, like churches, are where predation occur. But to believe that the bigger the institution gets, the better the oversight is. I mean, that's just so illogical on its face, and I don't know how that is like a premise that anyone who has ever considered themselves a libertarian to actually believe in. It's mystifying to me, honestly.
that's true, especially in schools. The bigger they get, the more corrupt that they get, and we see that. We see that statistically and logically, and on every measure. So you're right. Let me see. Conspiracy extremists, you go ahead and unmute yourself. Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you good.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Clint, you went pretty easy on that guy, and the words you called him were pretty accurate in my view. But my question is, I'm in Arizona. I'm a father of three. Two are in school. We've got a really good school situation, but I feel like the way Arizona's going is the opposite of, ideally where I'd like it. In your experience, especially your story, Josie, maybe Clint, you might have some ideas. Are there other things besides, things you could do that you found successful to impact your community to push it the right direction towards more liberty? Because it doesn't seem like my community's going that way, at least with the politicians. So I'd love to hear if you have any ideas that you could do.
Of course, it's a bottom-up solution. So, school board, sheriff, selectmen, you got to get into places of power where you can have some sway and some influence and pay attention. You got to go to every single school board meeting. You got to find out what's in their libraries. You have to be as involved as you possibly can in your children's schools. You have to vet the teachers. I'm glad that you have a good school now, and there are good public schools out there still because there are parents that do this. So that's what I would recommend. If you can get on the school board, that's the best thing that you can do with the power that you have for your three children, and keep the school going in the correct direction. Have the insight, see who you're, be part of the hiring process. It's all of that comes with being on the school board, and and that's what's so important, because while it is a bottom up solution, we are influencing children. Children are our future. So I would recommend that if there's a way to do that for you, definitely do that. And I think it's like once I can't remember if it's once a week or once a month that school boards meet, maybe twice a month. I can't remember. I know in my community it's on Tuesdays. I'm just not sure the how often.
Well, I guess, is there something besides school? Because we're not in public school, thank God.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're good there. I
Uh,
just mean impacting
in general,
community in other.
select board, town council, any sort of position like that, and so many open up. Like there's empty seats all over the place for town council positions. So I would look into that. And again, that's something that only meets like once a month or something, and it's very doable to get some influence and get in there. So definitely look into your town council.
And I would just say, if worse comes to worse and you conclude that it's unsalvageable, as obviously Josie and I both did, then there's no shame in migrating your family to somewhere that you feel suits your principles more closely. And P.S. Absolutely savage of you to think that I didn't go hard enough on the guy. So you're a wilder guy than me. I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. Clint and I both fled over to Florida. I went from Massachusetts. He came from California, and I mean, Arizona is becoming a bastion for Californians who are just fleeing because of the shit that they did. So I mean, you might not be able to stick around there long, but other places I'd recommend, Midwest, like Montana, South Dakota, South Carolina, Florida, of course. There's red. I say go red. I stay away from purple and blue because I never want to come close. I know what they're capable of, and I never want to have that again. So there are places. Just bet a new state. If it gets to that point, you'll know when it's time to leave. So stick it out as long as you can, though, for sure, especially if your family and friends are there. Thank you. I'm not sure if Luke or Yasser had their hands up first, so I'm going to go Luke, then I'm going to go for Yasser. Go ahead and mute yourself, Luke.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. I just wanted to say that I totally agree with what's the host's name. His name is Mike, right?
Clint
Clint?
and Josie. Yep.
Okay. Well, you took a harder stance than most of our justice system when it comes to the issue in and of itself. When you actually, uh, the result of your actions is death, that is going to send a shockwave through an area if the result of what you do is death. Say you're handing out fentanyl in, the state, and uh, the penalty for that is death because it ends up killing like 10, 15 people. Well, you know, that's definitely a good way to handle it, in my opinion. Uh, Now, when it comes to large government organizations um, being used against the people, I feel like I have a very good understanding of that just because uh, my personal situation. And I don't have to get into that, but uh, basically, I understand that a government can be weaponized against an individual very clearly, specifically with what I'm dealing with. FBI agents were pulled off of uh, their jobs searching for, child sex trafficking, all this other stuff, like important things to find people like me, which are the J6ers. And it just doesn't make any sense. Uh, that
I've had Kyle Serafin and Steve Friend, who are both FBI agents turned whistleblowers. That one of them, in fact, Steve specifically whistleblew because of what you're describing. Is that he was pulled off of, like Epstein style cases and put on the J6 stuff, and he was just like, "This is insane." So you're telling the truth.
I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about here is a large government organization that can be turned over and weaponized against the people. And that's why I think that the libertarian way is the way to go. I tend to lean towards people taking their own responsibility for their own life and their own community to make sure that it's safe. So I guess that's really all I have to say about that. But I just support what you guys are doing here and what you guys believe in.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
man. I
much.
appreciate that.
Yasser, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm calling from outside the U.S. So my perspective is like an observer, but I feel like that I've been through, like, people outside have been through the same kind of government meddling, especially through these COVID years that have occurred globally. So I can kind of relate to what's happening in your country, and I'm in, like, the libertarian kind of philosophy is appealing because I mean people want the governments and the regulations, and you got to stay at home and you got to be locked down. They want them off your back. But my question is, I don't know much about it, so like I have some practical questions as to how this libertarian philosophy or political system works. When you say that the community makes its own laws, is that what you're uh, you're proposing? Is that the community would have its own set of laws under which it's governed? And if so, I mean, what do you describe the community? Is it like a group of? Does it have a number of people? Does it have? Is it a county? Is it? I mean, is it on a state level? How many people is a community? And are these laws? Are these laws? Who enforces these laws? Is it the community that enforces them? Is it the police that enforces them? That's where I'm kind of lost in trying to understand what you mean by a libertarian society. I
Of
mean,
course. Yasser, can I ask what country you're from?
yeah, I'm from Portugal.
Okay. All right. Clint and I are actually different types of libertarians. He's an
Yeah.
ANCAP and I'm a minarchist. So we
Mm.
don't agree on everything. So we actually would have different solutions for this. I'm a states' rights libertarian, and I would take local or state level when it comes to making laws.
Yeah.
And Clint would do more of a local. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he'd be more of a local level. I would go up to state level as well, though.
Okay.
Sorry, my
And,
mic
And
wasn't
that's
working for a while, but
per
I'm back now, just so you guys know.
okay, all right, good. And that's per we have the Bill of Rights here in America, and so that's just I'm a Bill of Rights libertarian, so that would be the 10th Amendment is states' rights, and the Ninth Amendment is actually anything that we didn't write down doesn't mean it's not a right if you do it yourself. So those
yeah,
are the two major ones.
yeah. So who would enforce these laws if you don't want government meddling? I mean, is who would enforce these?
In a minarchist society, it's we believe in government to the smallest level imaginable just to enforce the Constitution. So that would be justice, defense, and police. So
Okay, so
in
you'd have
a
those institutions
and
working,
yes,
and you'd
depending
be
on what it is in a
and
minarchist
you
society, it would be any
yeah,
of those.
and you'd be bound by the Constitution, and you'd
Yeah,
have to operate within the parameters of the Constitution when formulating the laws of either your community and your state.
Yes, the state constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, okay. And and there was an issue also of to what point do you tolerate the customs of other cultures? Say like there's the African cultures that marry their kids into
Hmm.
at an early age, and do you tolerate that or not? And from what I understood, the libertarian position is that you do tolerate that because you don't want the government to set
No,
the
No, no,
is
no, no.
no
very
sorry.
specifically, what I was saying is that it's the justification that neoconservatives use to basically project their values across the entire world. My belief is that really the only thing that I have a moral claim to would be to my local community. So I would not permit that within my community, of course, but would I justify some sort of drone attack or bombing campaign or invasion to alleviate that problem in all areas of the globe? The answer is clearly no.
All right, so you're anti kind of imperialistic. You wouldn't
Yes,
want
anti-intervention. Yes.
anti-intervention.
Anti-intervention.
Yeah,
Yes, Clint and I
yeah,
both agree on that. We're exactly on the same page for that.
yeah. So, and how realistic do you see this happening? You see, like, how what steps would you? How would this become possible? How what steps are necessary for this to become possible in say either state or community level or
From America's perspective, it's already happening in Florida. States' rights are a big deal here.
state right?
So it's already happening for me on a minarchist level
So
where I live.
sorry, that means that Florida is setting up its own kind of DeSantis is your guy in
Yeah,
Florida, right?
yeah, yes,
He's
Governor.
setting up his own laws, say
Yeah,
independent.
he doesn't. Yes, he doesn't listen to any federal legislation. He's kind of got his
Yeah,
own little kingdom here, which is a very free kingdom that protects our children, and I have absolutely no issues with him at all. So
yeah.
um, I'm okay with that.
And
I'm
and
living
what
where I
what
want to
what
live.
and he's very popular. And
Yes,
what's stopping other? I mean, seeing the popularity that he has, what's stopping other governors from taking the lead? I mean, even
correct.
even if it's from a hypocritical populist standpoint, like even if they don't believe it, even if they want to garner the votes, they see,
Hmm.
well, this guy's popular, let's just do this. What's
Yes, I
stopping
know
other governors?
the governor of South Carolina pretty much follows everything Ron DeSantis does, but he doesn't do it with any bells and whistles, and nobody notices. He flies under the radar. South Dakota is pretty free as well. They didn't have, I don't think, any lockdown stuff, and even Florida had a little bit. Well, Governor DeSantis researched it to see what the hell was going on, and when he realized that it wasn't that big a deal, it was a flu, then
Yeah.
everything was lifted. But I think South Dakota didn't go through any of that at all. So it depends. Like each state, the states are, and we're at a point now where we can see the difference in states because their governors, like, I'm not going to move to California because Governor Newsom is a tyrant, and we can
Yeah.
see each governor and how they are and decide if that's the place for us now. So it's becoming more apparent, states' rights. They're either becoming more tyrannical in following the federal level or they're becoming more free.
And how do you justify the shift in what was once a left wing liberal ideal of being for free speech and being for being anti tyrannical, which was a traditionally left
Mhm.
wing position, and now it's these very left wing people that are supporting. Censorship and are supporting is this gaslighting, is this psyops,
Yeah,
is this what they call mass psychosis formation in which people are just
exactly.
doing
It's
is
because of that. It's because they grew their government, the Democrats were giving them everything they wanted, giving them gay marriage, for instance, giving them um, different types of little fringe things
candy.
that they wanted, and so they began to, like, when you feed, don't feed the bears at the park. It's like that, and they kept feeding the bears, and now the bears are dependent on them, and the bears see them as their savior. So that's my opinion, is that they just began to worship the government and see them as the cure for anything that they wanted. And on top of that, they never had their confirmation bias. Um, it, they've never had their confirmation bias questioned in the last 10, 15 years. Everything that they wanted was agreed upon from an appeal to authority. The state was like, oh, yes, this is right. You're right. You're right. You're right. And they've never been questioned, never been pushed back against. And that's what you get. You get a bunch of spoiled children who are entitled to whatever they want because they've never been told no. And they begin to worship the person who gives them everything that they want, which is the Democrats in the state. And so if they're getting everything they want, then they're going to comply with everything as well. And the
It's too
level
much
of
of a
moral superiority on top of it.
it's too much of a cognitive dissonance now to turn around and
Hmm.
and do you see what's happening now with Fox News and what the release of these 4,000 hours of tape that show the insurrection or the riots
Oh yeah,
being
they're
somehow contradictory to the
well,
narrative that
they're
they've been trying to. Do you see anyone waking up to that, or do you see the gaslighting
it's a lot of
just
gaslighting, and it's a lot of reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. And that's a
blatant?
Orwell quote.
Yeah,
I think a lot of
And
conservatives are having their eyes, permanently open to how deeply corrupt both the FBI and the congressional representatives that railroaded them are. So I think that's a white pill, and I think that's reason for hope. But I think it's equally reason for concern and skepticism that so few on the left are willing to look at that footage and realize that the narrative set that they were told for many years was in fact largely
yeah.
fiction, and it
You,
just kind of demonstrates the tribal nature of the divide that we're in right now.
you're preaching to the converted with the Republicans and with the Democrats, which
it's
are the
almost like
ones you've got to kind of wake up to
it's
what's
almost like
happening.
there's been a great party switch, isn't there? Like all of a sudden their beliefs are completely different
Yeah,
from here. It's
totally,
incredible.
totally.
I think the reality is that the left and right can both swing towards tyrannical
Yep.
intentions when they get too much of a stranglehold on power, and the left had just such hegemonic domination of not just the political establishment but also academia and the media and public school that
Every single
they
institution.
yeah they got drunk on power, and now they're flexing in a way that's you know verging on Stalinism or something crazy.
But
So
yeah,
concerning, to put it mildly.
I agree. Chris, I saw that you had your hand up. Did you still
thanks
have
a
a question?
lot. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yasser. That was a very valuable questions that you had, and it's interesting to see how you view us from Portugal. So
I
I
pay a lot
really
of attention to what's
respect it.
happening there. But
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you for calling in. Chris, if you still had a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I know I put my hand up and down. Um, yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease for sure, and it's gotten a little out of hand. But I did want to kind of touch on something you had mentioned, Redhead. It was saying that DeSantis doesn't necessarily follow the rules enforced by the federal government. Do you think that he had any control over the Mar-a-Lago raid that happened in Florida, or no?
No, that was feds. He probably found out about it when everybody else found out about it. I think that they're trying to kind of create uh, discontent between Governor DeSantis and Trump. That wasn't really there. I mean, Trump's kind of feeding into it now, but it wasn't really there around that time. So I don't believe he knew about it. I mean, I do know people that work for him, and it doesn't sound that way. So it's when the feds do stuff, they just do stuff.
I think what would be required of him would be to, you know, essentially shut down the Florida border and kick any FBI agents that are either driving or flying in. And it's like I don't think we're at that point yet where any governor is prepared to take that type of stand.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
And for all I know, there may be FBI head, like they may have a branch of the FBI that is already in Florida. Hector could probably speak to that if he wants to.
Hey, yeah, hearing my voice, I'll chime in. Yeah, Washington Post came out with an article last week stating that Ron DeSantis was given a heads up warning about the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. And my contention is, like any other governor, they can actually refuse any federal law enforcement agency to operate within their sovereign jurisdiction. And that was the problem that we were seeing with Mar-a-Lago. And frankly, it's kind of disappointing that when given the chance to do the right thing, and really score a point for everybody against the bad administration. You kind of let it happen and fuel this this radical call to basically throw the book at Trump. Who we all know was just set up for a lot of things. He was guilty of a lot of things, but not what they're accusing him of.
Thank you. I didn't know any of that. I appreciate the perspective. Do you know how much warning he was given?
I'm going to drop the WAPO article on you, but it was going to be days.
Okay, so he was given a few days to do something about it. And that happened in August?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was August.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. All right, so I have to look back at the dates and see if there was other stuff happening at that time as well that maybe took precedent, but I can't imagine what would. So thank you for that. I had no idea. Derek, you can go ahead and mute yourself.
What up, everybody? First of all, a lot of Florida people in here. Hey, Hector, what's going on, dude? Apologies if I changed subject or if this has already been covered. I got here late, but Clint, what's a high-level update on the SVB situation?
I don't really have anything new to add other than that as I said on part of the problem last night, the water went out and we saw a lot of people were swimming naked, and we're starting to figure out, other banks that were in similar predicaments. So whether or not the FDIC Treasury Fed intervention to guarantor depositors will be enough to stem not only bank runs but additional contagion and equity impacts, I don't know, man. It's honestly, I think it's too early to say.
Yeah, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off the last 24 hours. I haven't really seen much, but I didn't know if there's any updates from today or since Friday or not.
I did just hear that the Swiss banks
Sunday night was I was on part of the problem. I think it's only exclusively on Dave Smith's YouTube. So if you want, a real deep dive, he and I did that just last night, and I don't think I would say much different from what I said there.
I'll go check it out. Thank you.
I retweeted it on my page. You can find it there, Derek. I did want to read a DM that I got from someone, and he was talking about, to jump back to age of consent and community versus state and all of that. He was talking about something called Dunbar's number. It was proposed by a British anthropologist, Robin Dunbar, in the 1990s, and it's a suggested cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain a stable social relationship. And that number is a range from 150 to 250. So 250 times 250 would be 62,500 people. So anywhere from that to 100,000, say, would be a good community size to be able to maintain a stable community where there's not too many corrupt people versus too much tyranny. So I thought,
yeah, I think that would be a reasonable level, or at least a good goal. Certainly, 330 plus million people functioning under the same federal laws is absolutely insane. Which, the only reason it's even remotely tenable is because of the Republican aspects of our founding and the fact that we still have some states' rights that allow us to have a little bit of say so. But aside from that, it would just be, hell living here. Imagine if every state was California during the past 3 years, it would just be game over. So I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer for that either. But to believe that larger institutions are less corrupt, I think is just laughably naive. And I honestly don't understand how any libertarian would ever believe that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Jack, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, so I just realized the original version of this talk was titled "Free Speech Absolutionism Debate," and that makes me wonder: was this a trap where he said he wanted to debate that, and then just immediately decided to accuse you of being a pedophile?
I I mean, honestly, I knew going in that was going to be his angle. It's just classic loser brigadier maneuvering. It was some of his people that were the ones that initially released the 30-second clip from that interview from 2 years ago, um, with Eliza and Thaddeus, and allowed it to become this viral sensation that honestly, this is what's really frustrating about it. Like, people watched that conversation in real time back then, and a lot of people going into it didn't want me to do it because they were really upset with Thaddeus for his tweets, and coming out of it, it was like universally people were like, that was a really productive conversation. Like, good job, you handled that perfectly. Like, I got no real hate from it, like one or two people, but like thousands of people were like, that was like stunningly productive and good. And it's only, in hindsight, because Eliza is now this lightning rod, that it really became a major factor. But I don't mind. I'm accustomed to it at this point, that the people that are adversarial to me are going to try and frame me in the worst way possible. But I mean, it's disappointing when it comes from libertarians, because I tend to have this kind of like, is there no honor amongst thieves? Like, we're up against the most tyrannical state in human history, and like, we're going to undercut each other in a way that's really uh, underhanded and dirty, and it's just not who I would expect to consider a compatriot, and I don't consider these people my compatriot. Sorry for the rant.
Not at all. All right. Does anybody else have any questions?
I was wondering if do you consider yourself a patriot of this country?
Me?
Yep.
Um,
I guess it was Liberty talking. Whoever just said that they were a compatriot.
okay. That's for you, Clint.
Yeah, I would consider myself very patriotic when it comes to the American ideals, not so much the government itself.
Would you
I'm the
die for
same.
that?
Same.
Would I die for the ideals that the nation was founded upon?
For your
Is that what you
country?
mean? Is that what you mean? No, I would not die for my country. No. The currently constituted United States of America government? No, absolutely not.
I feel like a lot of times they go into war and they're not given the true reason why they're going into war either. And I mean, our freedoms aren't over in the Middle East, and that's that's a hard thing to reckon with. Would I die for 1776? Yeah, absolutely. That's who our country is at its core, and I'd love to have that back. Hector, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sure, I appreciate it. I wanted to go back to what somebody, I think it was a gentleman from Portugal, mentioned, about what is this idea of that we have in America about liberty, because I'm a first generation immigrant myself, so it actually, outside of America, it really this conversation is really way different. I mean, we don't, in America, we do have the tradition of, the smallest form the smallest form of government that we appreciate is really the individual. There, that doesn't exist outside of America. That doesn't exist outside of America because everybody has forms communities based on not on ideas or value or necessarily values, but language, history, other types of ways people identify themselves, and that's really a big separation. I mean, people come here and built up a long legacy in America of wanting to do things their way because they saw that they could govern their own, decide for themselves what's best for them, than somebody far removed from the consequence of their decisions. And that's totally different. And this is coming from like Portugal, which is, when I think Portugal, I think, that's really the first country to basically stop enforcing the war on drugs and decriminalize everything, and watch how there's the social problems or social ills of wild drug abuse dramatically decreased. So in other words, less usage overall, less of the social ill effects, and it just reminded me that that's something that is so important to talk about. That and not just drug, but the point of that freedom and liberty look different outside of America than we do here. So when he's actually asking for a frame of reference, he doesn't have one. And people outside this country don't have them. In fact, in South America, where my family's from, they're still in their lockdowns. From the C-19. So that's what I had to contribute. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
Hector.
think the tie that binds Americans is kind of this, individualist, anything is possible, dreamer, entrepreneurial type of spirit that, like, wherever you're from, you can come here and find, if you're willing to work hard enough and you're smart enough, like, you can find a way forward. And like, now that we've kind of lost that because we have such an overbearing state and taxation and regulatory environment, not to mention academia, which kind of undermines the better nature of young people. I really believe that's why we're so unmoored. We've, like, our culture is individualism, and, like, now that we're taking on this collectivist form, we really don't have anything that unifies us, because we don't have that shared history that the French or the Germans might have. It's a or even a shared language. I mean, we're such a diverse people. So if we can't find some sort of similar cultural objective, I just think that this nation is doomed to disintegrate, and perhaps necessarily so.
I believe our cultural objectives should be liberty, but they are selling, even to immigrants or migrants, they're selling equity. Like, that's the American dream, is that you can come here and get whatever you want. And that's not the way it is. That's never been the way it is. So that's a scary and sad thought as well. But our mutual goal should be liberty. We should all unite behind that. Ragnar, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey there, how you doing? Sorry.
Hello.
Someone mentioned before, I'm not sure who said it, but they were asking about, were you willing to die for your country? And I'm a Marine recon vet from Desert Storm and Somalia days. And back then, I absolutely would have. I would absolutely die for my country. I would do everything for it. And I've seen it disintegrate, even in the military, to today. And it's very disheartening. And all the other veteran friends that I've got, they're seeing the same thing. There's not that same camaraderie. There's not the same standards. And so we have let our pants down, proverbially, to, make sure that we're getting, everyone in, sort of thing. It's making sure we have, making sure everyone is able to pass. It's almost like our school system. And seeing all that is just, the whole thing is just very disheartening to me. Among everything else that's going on now, it's just kind of going in the same direction as the country is that we just need to lower standards just so everyone can pass the finish line. And so anyway, that was my 2 cents on that.
Thank you, Ragnar.
Yeah, I relate to. I'm not a veteran, but I absolutely relate to the shift in perspective, because I, as a libertarian, I already, from a very young age, was cognizant of some of the unjustified wars that we had been in. And I came of age right into the war on terror, and it was just so heartbreaking to see it happen once again in real time, where they concocted narratives that were false to justify wars that were, in my opinion, both unconstitutional but also illegal. And then to abandon the veterans when they get home is just insult to injury in a way that I can barely even give enough words to. So I don't blame any veterans that have had a shift in that perspective. And honestly, I think you'd kind of be crazy if you didn't.
Well, they've had a very big drop in recruiting people, and you can see why. It's not the same.
Totally logical.
It's illogical to go, and they don't have the same standards. Usually it was, or before, it was like, man, you go over here and it's going to be tough. It's going to be, all this other stuff that you hear about, and now it's sort of like, everyone's just getting through and whatnot. I mean, they still have some physical standards, but I've seen some of these people, and even the physical standards are not where it used to be. So it almost reminds me, not quite the same, but back right before World War II, the U.S. was very ill prepared for that. We were not prepared. The armed forces were not ready. It was very lazy style standards, and the World War kicked the whole nation into gear and progressed. And I hate to say that is like what almost needs, that something of that nature that would reboot this nation into something of togetherness and patriotism and everything else. And it's sad to say that. I don't want to see it happen, but it almost seems like it needs something dramatic of that nature.
I'm not even sure like another 9/11 would unite us at this point. I feel like it would divide us further because they'd
They blame Trump,
they're
first off.
victims.
They would blame Trump for whatever, first off.
Oh, absolutely. So they have a villain now. They have a super villain that we didn't have before. So everything's got to be his fault. And I mean, they had one in 1984 too. The book. They have their super villain. So I can't even say at this point if that would unite the country. I feel like it would divide us further into the good guys versus the bad guys, because everybody would want to be the good guy and they'd want to rush to the side of the good guy. And I don't know. I
But
can't.
in 1984, we were only supposed to be in perennial war with one of those fictitious nations at a time, not both. So we're actually in worse shape than 1984.
Oof, good point. Katie, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, I just wanted to add to Chris, who had asked about dying for our country. And I think a lot of folks in my particular position, with the way things are going on, geared towards our children and that sort of thing, we would die for the American ideal, the way things used to be. Josie had said going back to 1776, and of course the founding documents and what made our nation what it is, not what it is today, but the freedom that we had versus what our government has become over 200 and almost 50 years. But I also believe that this new woke agenda that is being indoctrinated on our children is something that a lot of parents are willing to lay their life down for. So that would be one way I would think of dying for my country, for my children's future. So I just wanted to put that out there and let you know. So I'll leave that with Josie.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents feel that way.
Absolutely. I mean, I left my family behind, all my friends, my life, everything for my children. So I definitely get that and like that point of view a lot, because what I did can be oh, hi Figaro, because what I did could be looked at as not like that, but it felt like that because I felt like I was starting my life over.
Guys, I am unfortunately going to be forced to run at this point. I've delayed as long as I possibly can, so I'll head out. But go ahead and continue on if you want, Josie, or do you want me to just end it now?
Yeah, we can. I love y'all, but we can just end it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while, but I appreciate if you guys have any of those comments. I see hands raised. You can DM them to me or Clint if you want an answer that way, and we're happy to get back to you.
Yep. Appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night, guys.
Good night, all.